session. I'm teaching a session called Effectiveness Trumps Efficiency in Relationship Work. And this is the first time of me teaching this because generally I teach QuickBooks classes. And this was strictly a practice management, thought provoking type of session. So I figured I'll put some of the slides that I'll be teaching live here in today's presentation. And we may not get through all of them. So we're going to kind of test the speed of it. This also allows me to kind of adjust it for the live presentation. So you guys will be the guinea pigs as well for this. Okay, so let's start. So the general message behind the fact that effectiveness trumps efficiency is that we want to evolve from the firm of the past to the firm of the future. The firm of the past sells time, or they're in the business of exchanging time for money, where the formula for revenue was multiplying your capacity hours, right? Your total number of hours you can work times your hourly rate times your efficiency. So I would say, how often you can, how much stuff you can output per hour or something like that, right? That's the firm of the past. The firm of the future is focused on profits, and profits are about multiplying or using the inputs that are really valuable to both the firm and the customers. We have intellectual capital, which is what you learn how to do and why you do it. We have your effectiveness, which is your capacity to produce results. And we're going to deep dive into that. And then we have value pricing. And I don't want to talk about value pricing at all on this one because value pricing deserves probably its own 8-hour webinar. But I'll talk about just one of the components of the firm of the future formula, which is effectiveness. And at the end of the day, what we want to sell is a transformation. We want to be the catalyst to transforming our clients to be better business people or having better information to make better decisions so they themselves can have a more profitable, successful business. So the first thing is sales is vanity, profit is sanity. How many times have you sat in front of a customer that they're obsessed about selling their first million, or that's all they think about? Oh, this month we sold 100,000. Next month we're going to sell 120,000. Finally, next year we're going to have 20 employees, and they have this really strange obsession with a number, and that number is completely arbitrary. Like for some of my small clients, getting to $1 million, it's a dream come true, and some of my other clients, $1 million would be absolutely devastating to their business based on their current business model. So people obsess a lot about these numbers without thinking about what really matters, and what really matters is profit. Now, the word profit, I just don't mean economic profit. I mean profit from every sense of the word. For example, when you hire someone to cut your hair, right? Just want to say something as random and trivial as that. You spend $20 for a haircut, $30 for my haircut. If it's my wife, probably $100 for a haircut. And you don't think about what's your profit in the situation. You're paying to get a haircut. But you know what your profit is? You walk out looking good and feeling good about yourself. And all business transactions have that sort of hidden in it. And sometimes we only think about the numerical portion of it. And sales are important. I mean, sales will drive profit if you have consistent margins. But I believe it's just much better to focus on what are the activities that make you money versus the activities that move the needle. So with that, I'm going to basically talk about a lot of things I learned from my mentors and a couple of books that I read that really have changed my practice. Peter Drucker has had a huge influence on me. He's a very famous management consultant. And he says, because the purpose of a business is to create a customer, and I would add create and maintain both, the two most important functions of a business are innovation and marketing. So when I heard that, and I didn't see accounting as one of them, it was devastating because I'm like, I thought that accounting was a really important function of the business, and it's not. It's absolutely not. The two most important are innovation and marketing, and there's one place where accountants can play a huge role in our clients' lives, which mostly is the innovation piece. Okay, but at the same time, also marketing indirectly, because if we take time away from our customers where they are spending doing mundane tasks, data entry, trying to reconcile the banks and just being really frustrated with the numbers. When you give them back that time and you take care of that task, usually what your customer does with that time is business development, is visiting customers, is marketing. So we can have an impact in our clients in both of these things, according to Peter Drucker, being the two most important things or two most important functions of a business. So, if we deep dive into the firm of the future model here, innovation will be driven by intellectual capital, and innovation will be driven by effectiveness. And usually, when we talk about value pricing is more of the marketing aspect or the branding aspect, the positioning aspect, and marketing can also drive effectiveness because if we can bring the right customers, we can be more effective by just doing what we're best at. So when we follow this formula and at the end we focus on profit and we do make profit, and profit is not a dirty word in any sense of the word. Profit is a positive thing. We take those profits and do what? Reinvest it back in innovation, right? Apps, technology, infrastructure, the things that really help us to be better, training ourselves, education, and we reinvest that profit back in marketing, as Michelle said, being such an important component of the business. So transform your practice, transform your clients. The three components are consistently have a plan to build and grow your intellectual capital, which is both your personal knowledge, your capacity, and your team's knowledge and capacity. And make sure that stuff is not temporary, that is permanent. What anyone in your team learns needs to be something that everyone simultaneously learns. Two, become effective and forget efficiency. Not gonna say that you should forget efficiency. What I'm saying is you want to be effective even at the risk of losing efficiency. And that's what I'm going to deep dive into in the next couple of minutes. And become value driven. That means, just think about the value you bring and then price accordingly. This is pretty much another word for value pricing. So let's talk about working relationship and relationship work. And Michelle mentioned the word relationship a few times when she was talking about marketing. A work relationship can be defined as the result of a relationship that is derived from the health of the work. So when you have a good working environment, typically people that work in that environment have a working relationship, okay? Which is a little bit different in contrast of relationship work, which relationship work is where the results are driven from the health of the relationship. And what I like to propose here is that the health of the relationship is more important than the health of the work. Because the health of the relationship, even with unhealthy work, has a much bigger potential to turn around that business, turn around that work, and make that work better. But the most important thing that anchors relationship at work is the mutual experiences that you learn while working together, right? Think about when you were in school and you did school projects and you did team projects. Think about the relationships you made with those people because you were both working towards the same goal. So anyone you study with or you did projects with, you have this special bond with. In the accounting profession, we tend to make these two the relationship very isolated. The client gives me stuff, I prepare financial statements, I give it to the client is responsible for the results, right? When you focus on the relationship with your approach to it is that we are doing this together, or we're working towards the same work together. So I'll ask this question just for you to think about it. Up to you. What do you think is more important, relationship work or a work relationship? Okay, so let's talk about efficiency versus effectiveness. So our profession is obsessed with efficiency. I mean, I hear the word efficiency and efficient 100 times when I go to conferences and meet with my fellow accountants. And I don't think there's anything wrong with the word efficiency. Efficiency is not evil. And efficiency is, achieving the maximum productivity with minimum waste of effort. I mean, we want that, right? We want to get as much out with as little work as possible. And Peter Drucker defines efficiency as doing things right. Okay, um, it, and so it is possible to be efficient and not be effective. The effectiveness is the degree to which something is successful in producing the desired result or success. So effectiveness is doing the right things. So efficiency is doing things right. Effectiveness is doing the right things. I will give you an example of that is going to be very illustrative. Doing the wrong things correctly, it's a doing the wrong things correctly is one of the pitfalls of efficiency. So you can be very, very efficient and achieve nothing. Okay. The execution of bad ideas flawlessly, right? It's going to give you the wrong results. So sometimes when and people say work smart, not hard, that is kind of what it's the same thing, it's the same message, right? Sometimes you can wrongfully pick the wrong task and execute it perfectly, but it won't get you anywhere. Okay. So let me give you an example of something that it'll resonate with a lot of you guys. So if you go to Disney World or Disneyland, you're gonna see you watch some of these employees are from an accountant's perspective are extremely ineffective. I mean inefficient. They're extremely inefficient. Sorry. So I'm not a professional or an expert in asphalt cleaning, but I'm pretty sure that painting a huge Mickey Mouse face on the middle of the street is not the most efficient way to clean the floor. But why would Disney encourage their employees to do this? Because Disney has one purpose, which is to create a customer. And how do they create a customer? By making sure that they walk into a park and they walk out ecstatic with their experience. And their experience is an accumulation of things that they see and stimulate their brain. And it could be something as inefficient as cleaning the floor by drawing Mickey Mouse on it. So it is possible that you can be effective at achieving your goals and your results and be extremely inefficient while doing it. And the only way to know that you are going to be there, that you're going to hit the mark, is because you know what your purpose is, you know what the goal is, you know what the desired result is, you know what is it that the client is expecting from you. Now let's talk about productivity. Okay, productivity is the state or quality of producing something. So sometimes we mix up the words. And the productivity is your capacity to produce, or it could also be defined as the effectiveness of productive effort. Now, why do I want to define this? And I'll show you in a minute, just because I want to show you a graph that brings all the components together. And the capacity is the maximum amount something can contain, or the maximum amount you can produce. So many a times we think about being efficient because we are being productive with all of the available capacity. And it is possible for you to achieve efficiency by being as productive as possible with all the available capacity. But you will not be truly effective until you bring results into the mix. And I know everybody knows this stuff. This shouldn't be new to anyone. Okay, no one really says, "Oh wow, I didn't know what these words meant." What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to change your thinking that productivity and capacity and maximizing your productivity within your capacity and output as much work per hour should not be your focus. Your focus is to what is the result? What does the client want? What will make the client happy? What will allow us to produce a new client? What will allow us to keep our clients loyal? And then focus on those results, because that's where productivity, capacity, and results meet. When all those three things meet in harmony, then we can be effective. I also think of in terms of graphing it out in a square here. If you look at effectiveness as an efficiency, as we mentioned, efficiency is doing the right things or doing things, right? Effectiveness is doing the right things. But if you want to achieve both effectiveness and efficiency, we have to do the right things right. Which requires us to look at both productivity, right? How much we can output per hour, and also results. What is it that the client wants at the end? I mean, think about it. Have you ever worked really hard at something? It took you hours. Uh, it took you weeks. Whatever it is, right? It just took you a long time to do something, and you deliver it to the client, and the client literally looks at it for 2 minutes, and sees right through it as if it was something mundane and appreciates it, does not appreciate it at all. I mean, I don't want to say they ignore it, but it's like it's almost like a piece of you just kind of like hurts a lot because you put all this effort into it and you think the client's going to be wowed by it, and then to come to find out that the client didn't really care. Think about all the hard work that we put to put a financial statement together. At the end of the day, the client says, "Oh, how much taxes do I have to pay?" And it's like, no, 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 it's not about taxes. Look at the chart of accounts and look at all the details and look at how many sub accounts I created and look at how I split up cost of goods sold and look at all the income categories. I grouped them up for you. And at the end, the client says how much taxes I have to pay. It's one of those really interesting things that happen. So if we don't know what the client wants, sometimes we can spend way too much time doing things that are worth nothing. And then when the client is disappointed because they didn't get what they wanted, and we're disappointed because the client doesn't value what we did, then we don't have a good work relationship. We don't have a good relationship, and it's just really hard to move forward. It's really hard to charge more. It's just really hard to be profitable, period. Now, I think of efficiency as all the things that connect with our left side of our brain, right? All the logical stuff, all the linear stuff, all the mathematical stuff. And effectiveness, I think of it as all this stuff that comes from the right side of the brain. How we feel about stuff, art, creativity, emotion. So we have to find the sort of the balance between, hitting the left side and the right side of the brain in everything that we do. Now, let me tell you about inefficient design. So the Golden Gate Bridge was when it was built, the material that was brought in, the metal, the steel, was coated with some sort of anti-rust, anti-corrosive material that turned into this orangey reddish color over time. And it wasn't meant like that. Like, no, the bridge was not designed to be red or orange. I mean, it's more of the color's orange, but it's a red. It was never designed to be this color. But it became so iconic that now the city of San Francisco or the state of California, whatever, they actually paint the bridge to make sure that it has a uniform color throughout at great expense and great inefficiency, because they could have just made the thing gray or silver or black so they don't have to spend so much in paint. By the way, the paint that goes into this bridge is extremely expensive. But why do they do this? Well, they do this because it's effective. Because when you look at that bridge, you think of San Francisco, you think of where you are. It's the only bridge in America that looks like that is that color. So it is iconic and it does speak to the soul. Okay, so that's a really important piece. Now, just in case you are wondering, there's an actual color. It's called the International Orange Golden Gate Bridge. You can actually buy that color. I mean, it's this color is so famous that that it has its own code for it, because it is a type of paint that they actually have to buy. It's a formula for it to be consistent. But I thought it was interesting that it's an orange, not a red. I always thought it was red. While I was researching this, I figured out it was an orange. Anyway, what about relationships? Okay, relationships are inefficient. I mean, the nature of relationships is inefficient. Relationships are time consuming. You can't measure a relationship. You can feel it. Like, you can feel when someone loves you, or you can feel when someone cares about you, but you can't measure it. And it's fragile. It's one of those horrible things about life, is that every relationship is at the brink of destruction, at the brink of, like, almost you have to tiptoe. You have to make sure you say the right things. Relationships are complicated. They're emotionally draining. Now, one of the things I like to say, or is that prenuptial agreements are efficient. They're as efficient as it gets. It's, we count our stuff before we get married. Something goes wrong, we can go our own ways. Everybody gets their stuff back, or at least their original stuff. But why don't people do prenuptial agreements? Because they're not effective at telling the other person that you are committed to a relationship. So there's so many things just throughout life that affect this whole concept of efficiency and effectiveness. Now, some of the things that I have learned that I think to be kind of like the keys to success is to have effective relationships. Number one, I would say there's no substitute for this, is trust. Okay, relationships are about trust. The only thing that sets a relationship apart is trust. And every relationship where there's distrust or lack of trust is doomed to fail. Now, transparency with feedback. So when someone cares about you a lot, they usually are quick to tell you the truth, tell it fast, and tell you exactly what they think. When they care about you a lot, but so much that they don't want to hurt your feelings, then they hold stuff back. And when they don't care about you so much and they just kind of want to butter you up, then they just give you the wrong feedback. Okay? They tell you what you want to hear. So an effective relationship is the one where there's transparency in feedback, where your customer will tell you, Hector, you messed up, right? Or I tell my customer, John, you messed up. And then from there, we can have a true conversation. But when there's no trust, people usually don't start a conversation like that, which is really the fastest way to get to the point. Now, one of the important things about effective relationship, I think, too, is respect for each other's time. Okay, although I'm not a big fan of measuring time, I am a big fan of respecting other people's time. And making somebody work twice, it is the most disrespectful way to show that you do not care about them, especially when it's blatant, especially when it could have prevented. Think about the level of frustration that happens when someone makes you work twice. And your customers have the same perspective. Like we all the time, when we clean our clients' messes, and we do the same thing every single month, we think our client is making us work twice. But we fail to see that sometimes when we ask the client a question that in their perspective is something that you should already know or you already asked, that is their version of you making them work twice. So you kind of have to be cognizant that both parties can think at any point in time that they're making them work twice. So just keep that in mind. Now, an effective relationship also, both parties have high interest on seeing each other succeed or taming a common foe. For example, when two people are both sort of against the IRS, whether it's an accountant and a customer, you tend to build that bond, that you're trying to stick it to the man, right? Those are the type of things that we do. I'm not saying that an accountant should, try to do something illegal or work against the IRS, but what I'm saying is that sentiment that builds bonds between people. Also, selflessness. There are clients that will not recognize how generous you are with your time and knowledge, but they are the ones that do. And I got to tell you, from my experience, the ones that do, they get top priority. The ones that tell me every once in a while, Hector, I saw your video on this, I saw your video on that, they get automatically top priority for everything they ask. Okay, why? Because they're showing interest in learning. They're showing interest on on just getting better. And the other piece that is important is remembering. I think remembering it's quite possibly one of the deepest, most complicated parts of relationships. Think about spouses, right? How devastating it is to forget someone's birthday. How devastating it is to forget someone's anniversary. And think about when you're dating or when you were dating. I think most of us here are probably already taken already above that. But when we were dating, the most valuable part for the other party was remembering, is the little details. And our customers are the same. Customer relationships are the same. Remembering little things about your customers are really, really impressive. Really, really impressive. Now, retention of lessons deriving from mutual experiences are also really important. Basically, this is like, when you go on vacation with your family, this is the one thing that most families bond over. When you go on a vacation with a family, the whole family is sort of experiencing the same thing. And those are typically memories that all have in common. This is why it's so powerful to take your family out for vacation. So with your customers, whenever we're going through tough times, tough experiences, let's try to, both of us have high level of retention of the lessons that are deriving from the work that we're doing together. Okay, so let's talk about 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, probably one of the most sold books in the world. Okay, um, these are the 7 habits. So I don't want to get deep into them, but I think mentioning them is important, because if you make them sort of a rule of thumb for your life, I think it helps quite a bit, especially focusing on being effective. One is being proactive, not reactive. Just think about the future. Think about things that are going to possibly happen in the future. I think the most stark difference between an animal who has a brain and can think and a human is that we think about the future. I can't imagine any animals calculate things in the future. There are some studies about maybe some monkeys that can think about 3 or 4 steps in the future, but that's about it, right? Animals kind of just live the moment, which sounds great. But humans, we think about the future all the time. And almost every behavior we take today, it's about our thoughts in the future, right? So being proactive is it's one of them. Two is begin with the end in mind, right? Everything we're talking about here, focus on the results. So just go backwards from results, right? Imagine what it would be like when you're done, and then write down all the steps that requires to get there. That's usually the fastest path to the results. First things first, right? So obviously separate things into what's urgent and what's important. Win-win, extremely important, right? Every time you have a transaction with someone, both people have to profit from that relationship. Okay, both people have to profit from the relationship, regardless of what it is. They have to profit. They have to. One person, the person that receives the money, has to have a profitable transaction, and the person that pays the money has to have a profitable transaction. It's a double thank you moment, right? Where you pay for something and you're so happy to pay for it, and the other person is happy to take your money. The other one is first understand, then be understood. There's a lot of focus on wanting to have a voice and wanting people to listen to you. But if you don't understand the other person's side, if you don't understand how they feel, how they see life, it's very difficult to be understood. And synergize means whenever you adding two components or two people, make sure that the sum of the two is higher than the sum of the two. All right. So make sure that the results are higher than the sum of the two. And sharpen the saw. So Stephen Covey makes a point that you should always be learning new things, and you should always try to learn new things, because that what your capacity to create, to build, and problem solve, it is one of the things that make you effective. Now, the eighth habit, which is a book that came afterwards, which is sort of a reflection of the first book, is find your voice and inspire others to find theirs. One of the most effective ways to get people to love you and respect you is to help them find what they're good at, help them find their purpose, help them find their path. When you help a lot of people along the way, you're going to build relationship capital, and relationship capital typically will trump monetary capital, because with enough people wishing you well and working hard to make things work for you, you will notice that just things just get easier. Just everything gets easier. Think about when we were kids, and our parents, our moms especially, just took care of everything for us. Like we magically wake up and there's breakfast, and we magically go to bed at night and our bed is made. That's what having people around you that support you feels like. Right? Everything is easy. And then once people are empowered, like people in your team, then you can delegate. A lot of times we delegate before we empower them. We have to teach them, we have to train them, we have to make people as good as us or better, so then we can effectively delegate. I find delegating one of the most religious experiences out there, when I actually have someone else do something that I had to do, and have that peace of mind that I don't have to do it. I mean, it is such a fulfilling uh, moment when you can do that. And that's those are things that I've had with my team, and I find that to be just very powerful. Now, the other one is having an abundance mentality. Okay, a lot of people walk around thinking that the world is zero sum, that debits equals credits, that for someone to win, another person has to lose, and it needs to be the opposite. Everything that's out there, there's plenty for everyone. That needs to be the mindset. Okay, nothing out there is scarce. That needs to be the mindset. Okay, unless you're a diamond miner, I understand that would be a different story. Okay, Stephen Covey says something that's very powerful. He says, if the ladder is not leaning towards the right wall, every stake that you take takes you closer to the wrong place. So that has to do with efficiency and effectiveness. Okay. You think of effectiveness with people, and we think of efficiency with things. We must be efficient with computers. We must be efficient with machinery, but we must be effective with people. The last thing I'll leave you here because this is an excerpt from a very long presentation that I'm doing at scaling is what I think are the most valuable life lessons that I have learned about business. One is bad customers drive away good customers. Having as many customers as possible feels efficient, maximum capacity. But having too many customers can make you ineffective with your best ones. The ones that care about you, the ones that fulfill your non-monetary needs of what makes you you, what makes you a professional. You know who those customers are. You wish you had more time for them. Okay, some customers require way too many resources, and we're talking not just talking about money and time. We're talking about the emotional capacity that we have to give. Value is subjective and pricing is contextual. Therefore, pricing based on value is effective because that's when we know what the customers want, how they feel about what they're buying, we can price accordingly. And the clients that don't value what we're worth, they should be clients of someone else. There's always someone out there that can charge less than you. Always. Right? In the United States, there will always be someone. And assuming you are the one person in the US that charges the cheapest, there will be another one in Asia that would charge cheaper. It's just how it is. Right? There's always someone that would charge less. So trying to do that, fight price, it's no good. Prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. Okay, if you don't understand the problem, how can you be efficient at curing it? You could probably be efficient and cure the wrong thing, but you need to cure the patient. So you need to you have a full diagnosis. And then the last one is in the real world, debits don't equal credits. Okay, inequality, it's life. Okay, things are not equal, and our job is to merge right the differences between that. So what I know what my customer knows is not equal, and that's okay. What the customer is willing to pay and what I'm willing to charge is not equal, and that's okay. And that is just part of life. Okay,